Hello, friends. Welcome to Draft Day. That's my fellow Mount Whitney High School alumnus, Kevin Costner. Great movie. A lot of people will disagree. I thought it was good. I thought they took creative liberty. I think that the quarterback that was supposed to be the number one pick was actually 25 years old, which was highly unrealistic. But yes, Kevin Costner did attend Mount Whitney High School in Visalia, my alma mater, for a year. So it all ties in right now. Happy draft day. This is 49ers Intel on draft day. We've got some day of Intel to go over. I wrote the article yesterday, came out today up on The Athletic. Here is the 49ers version of Kevin Costner. By the way, John Lynch said that he used to play some travel league baseball, maybe even some football passing league stuff when he was in high school in San Diego. He would play in Visalia because Visalia is in the middle of the state geographically. Not technically. I mean, Northern California is huge, but in between Southern California and Northern California. So where this guy's from, Kevin Costner, John Lynch, as a high schooler, we've talked about this before. He's like, where are you from? I said, Visalia. He's like, oh, I used to play passing league football in Visalia. So that is Lynch. That is some of the source of some of our intel. Obviously, John Lynch spoke on Monday. We are going to talk about what the 49ers might be doing here over the course of the next couple of days, with the underlying caveat being that they are looking to maintain as much optionality as possible, because the NFL draft at its core, the reason why you've woken up today, I hope that you're excited, is because this is a lot like a game. There is a lot of game theory that's going to be going on in the NFL draft, but there's a lot of unpredictability. And anybody who tries to assign some sense of order to how the draft works, they're probably going to fail when it comes to executing within it. It is inherently a crapshoot, so much so that I even have a text title ready for this. Do not underestimate the crapshoot of the draft. And when something is a crapshoot, it's going to be a lot like a live sporting event, in that you have to be on your toes. You have to be able to react in certain ways that you might not expect when the event begins, or that you might not expect 2 minutes before that certain juncture in the event causes you to have to react. So it's just like a football game, in that you've got to be ready to make adjustments. You have to be ready to change your play calls. Say that the 49ers were in a game against the Rams. I saw the Rams draft set up in Hermosa Beach last night. You probably saw the video. But say that they were about to play a game against the Rams, and they had their entire game plan ready. They had their script ready. They had the plays that they wanted to go to against the Rams on the sheet. Quarterback knew them. Kyle Shanahan was very prepared to call them. Imagine if they predetermined a play call with 5 minutes and 32 seconds left in the third quarter. Imagine if they entered that game knowing exactly what they would call with 5 minutes and 32 seconds left in the first quarter, or the third quarter. Even worse would be the third quarter, but even the first quarter would be bad. Imagine that they knew exactly what they were going to call, and they decided that they are not going to stray from that play call no matter what. Say that it was a halfback pitch to the right, and it was 3rd and 12 once that time rolled around in the third quarter, and they still decided to run it. That is how asinine it would be to say that you really like a player and that the 49ers have to draft him no matter what at number 31. That's what most of these mock drafts don't get. I don't mind the whole concept of a mock draft. In fact, I put out a couple. Obviously, that's something that we do because people like to check it out. They like to see how stuff could work in a hypothetical world. But so many of these mock drafts take themselves so seriously, and then people take them seriously, and they say, how could you pick this guy at 31? It's like, guys, it's all make-believe. Once 31 actually comes on the clock, the whole situation that you thought was going to be true about the picks that preceded it and whoever's available won't be true anymore. I get so many texts over the course of the month leading up to the draft. Who are the 49ers going to pick at number 31? It is a complete fool's errand. And the 49ers would be idiots to predetermine a position to pick at number 31, because so much can happen over the 30 picks before then. So don't underestimate the crapshoot of the draft. Prepare for this like the 49ers are. Prepare for it as it is a game. Be as prepared as possible for every single contingency, and then be on your toes, ready to read and react as things happen over the course of first today, then tomorrow, and then Sunday. So anyway, welcome to draft day. Those of you just coming in, the Mount Whitney alumnus, Kevin Costner, Visalia, California, says hello. I've got a couple of clues that I wrote about, and this article is linked in the description now. This came out on The Athletic today, and you could see the headline. It says, a mid-round focus, examining the 49ers' potential NFL draft strategy. Now, this is not outlining exactly what they're going to do, but an overarching strategy, I think, is very, very possible to identify at least what the 49ers anticipate they might be doing in this draft, because they can look at the talent pool. They can evaluate where they think it is richest. They can look at their own picks. They can see how that all matches up. And they can also take a look at their own roster to see how they might be able to improve it. And I was able to gather a couple clues from what we've seen in this pre-draft process. The first clue is that the 49ers visit list is light on first rounders. This is the 49ers pre-draft visit list. And what I did is I put the potential round of drafting, the draft round grade, by all of the players. As you can see, there are 23 players on this pre-draft visit list. They are allowed to have up to 30. So we haven't been able to account for about 6 or 7 since John Lynch said they had 29 or 30 total visitors. But out of the 23 that we know, only 2 have first-round grades on them. That is Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan and Nate Wiggins, the really fast cornerback out of Clemson, who might slip down into the second round, according to some of these projections. The overwhelming majority of picks, or the overwhelming majority of visits, I guess I should say. We shouldn't speak too soon, but I'm almost guarantee that one of these visits, at least one, is going to be a pick. But the overwhelming majority of these visits have come from players who have draft grades of the second round or lower. And you could tell there's a lot of fourth rounders, fifth rounders, third rounders. I mean, the middle rounds seem to be heavy in this pre-draft visit list. And in the past, this visit list has been most correlated with who the 49ers will actually pick. If you wanted something predictive of what the 49ers might actually do in the draft, looking at the top 30 visit list has been the one clue that has consistently led us closest to what the 49ers might do. Anyway, clue 2 is that John Lynch himself said, and this came in this article, I think the later rounds are going to be lacking. Why did he say that the later rounds are going to be lacking? His reasoning is that 83 players whom the 49ers graded as expected to be in the NFL draft back in the fall, 83 players decided that they're going to return to college. NIL, all this stuff has changed the dynamics of the game. It's a lot of players. It's like a third of the gradable draft class has decided to return to college. So the initial expectation was this class was going to be much bigger. The rules of the game have changed. And because of that, John Lynch straight up said the quote right beneath me, I think the later rounds are going to be lacking. So you put it all together. That's where I take clue 1, visit list light on first rounders. Clue 2, John Lynch says that the late rounds aren't going to be that great. Well, we'll hear from Mr. Lynch himself. That quote right there, that means that I think the 49ers might have a mid-round focus in this draft. I highlight it for you right at the top. The 49ers have consistently made hay in the middle rounds. Consider the fact that their first draft in 2017 with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan was not a masterclass in talent acquisition. The first round featured Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. The only 2 players from the 49ers' very first draft to sign second contracts with the team were George Kittle and DJ Jones. The 49ers, in fact, have built a powerhouse despite the fact that they dropped the ball on valuable picks, multiple valuable picks in their first draft, and they also dropped the ball on their biggest, most aggressive trade of this entire regime, and that was the trade up for Trey Lance, 3 first-round picks up to number 3. Despite the fact that the 49ers have not been able to yield return on investment in any real capacity off of those big investments, off of the Trey Lance investment, off of the first-round picks in 2017. Despite that, they've built what is arguably the most talented roster in the NFL. The reason that the 49ers have been able to do that is because they have scored in the middle rounds. It is a testament to their organizational strength, the communication between the scouting department and the coaching staff, the cohesion at top, the fact they've been able to hit so many times from the third round, Fred Warner, to the fourth round, to the fifth round, guys like George Kittle, Greenlaw, even to the sixth round, the middle of that draft, and hell, even the seventh round. That's where Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings came from. The middle rounds, which I've obviously highlighted right here, the middle rounds have been where the 49ers have made hay. And I think that the middle rounds, the clues tell us that it's very likely that the 49ers will be focused on those middle rounds again in this draft, even if that's not the sexiest way forward. Here's a number for you. The 49ers have 10 picks. 6 of those 10 come from number 31 to the end of the fourth round. So over half of their draft, 6 picks, that's a size of a full draft for some teams. The 49ers in the past have had as few as 6 picks. 6 of their picks are coming right in that middle of the draft. You know, you talk about a burger. You got the buns, you got the patty, the meat in the middle, the patty, the meat in the middle. That's where the 49ers are going to try to make their hay in this NFL draft. I will say, and I talk about the first draft right now, the Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster draft, an iconically bad first round for the 49ers, by the way, when we look back on it. But also when we look back at that 2017 draft, and I did delve into the history here in this article, John Lynch has been a very active trader from the very start. Not trader like somebody who betrays, a trader like Trader Joe's. John Lynch has 6 trades under his belt from that 2017 draft alone. There is fascinating data looking back at the trade history of the 49ers in the NFL draft since Lynch has taken over in 2017. And this is based on the Jimmy Johnson draft value chart. So each pick is worth a certain amount of points. We can see if the 49ers did well according to the chart or if they got fleeced. Generally, they have done well. They're more in the green, I think, here than they are in the orange and the red. But it looks like the worst trade according to the draft value chart over the years was the trade up to number 3 that ultimately netted the 49ers Trey Lance. They lost 372 points of draft value, and then they obviously picked a guy who's not even on their team anymore. You can all say thank you for Mr. Irrelevant. John Lynch even said thank God for Mr. Irrelevant the other day. Brock Purdy was able to help get the 49ers out of that mess. But with Lynch trading so much, you go back to 2017, he traded away pick number 2, and then he received a whole haul because the Bears wanted to move up a spot. So the 49ers gained 167 points in value. They lost a little bit of value in trading back up into the first round for Reuben Foster. Obviously, none of the 2 picks here at the very top yielded the 49ers much, but they were able to start making some moves with the picks that they ultimately accumulated at the end of the day when you looked at the entire haul they received for number 2. So that first draft was a 10-pick haul for the 49ers. The second draft, there was a little bit less movement. They traded up for Dante Pettis. I don't think that was the best idea for the 49ers in 2018. But they also traded up for Brandon Aiyuk in 2020. They were able to go from 31 to number 25. They gained 39 points in value, and the trade worked. As you can tell, on draft day itself, the 49ers have traded up a little bit more often than they've traded down. But I think the key here to really, really emphasize that there are both trades up and trades down. And that goes back to what I was saying at the start of the show. The 49ers have been on their toes entering the NFL draft. They've treated this like a game. They have been ready to make the play calls that are necessary, whether they be trade ups, trade downs, or just staying put. And that's really important because everybody likes to go around saying, what will the 49ers do? This is their behavior. Their behavior actually has been tailored to individual moments in the draft, which is what it needs to be. And that's why today is so exciting. Will they trade down from number 31? Maybe. Maybe they want to emphasize that mid-round focus because they'll see somebody want to hop into that first round at number 31 to grab a quarterback like Bo Nix with a 5th-year option attached to it since it's one of the last 2 first-round picks. Maybe the 49ers can gain tremendous value by trading out of the first round. Kind of like the Saints. I think it was the Saints who they traded with, right? It was the Seahawks maybe in 2017 to hop back to number 31 to pick Reuben Foster. It was a low value trade on the point scale for the 49ers, but they got the player they wanted. Obviously didn't work out. However, the other side of that trade, whoever the 49ers traded with, it might have been Seattle. Let me see. Did it say here? No, it doesn't say on this thing. I think it was Seattle they traded with in 2017. When you trade back into that first round, that team that gives up the number 31 pick, if they play their cards right, they can get really good value later on. And the value proposition is everything in the crapshoot that is the NFL draft. So maybe the 49ers do trade back and you end tonight saying, oh, well, I was hoping that I would be able to analyze the 49ers pick. Unfortunately, that might not be possible. Or maybe the 49ers trade up. I think this is a whole lot less likely because the visit list right now is light on first rounders, but I wouldn't rule it out because we don't know the entire visit list. We only know 23 of the 30 possible visits. And if the 49ers really, really like somebody, a trade up is possible. Now, the draft, there's two fundamentally different schools of thought, and the 49ers have mixed and matched both of these schools of thought. And we know they mixed and matched both of these schools of thought when we see this, when we see that they've traded both up and down over the course of John Lynch's tenure. The first school of thought is that the draft is such a crapshoot that your ability to evaluate talent is really not that great. And this would tend to agree with that. I mean, look at low the hit rates are at so many of these positions, including the very bottom, wide receiver, 27%. So if you think that the draft is such a crapshoot and your ability to evaluate talent isn't that great, the first philosophy would be to amass as many picks as possible. You basically want as many darts as you can to throw up against the wall because the percentages are so poor of evaluation, and the 49ers have learned the hard way with many of their players. The percentages are so poor that you'd rather just have as many picks as possible to pump the percentages up as much as you can. Kind of like the baseball theory, right? In baseball, even the best hitter is only getting on base or only getting hit about 30% of the time. But if you give him enough at-bats, ultimately he's going to do damage. So if you look at the draft that way, you're going to want as many picks as possible. And I think that this chart right here, Jeremy Fowler put it up on ESPN. This shows the hit rate at every position. It suggests draft offensive lineman high. This is the first round, by the way. Hit rates in the first round. It suggests that you might want to look at offensive linemen in that first round because those are the most surefire prospects. The problem is the 49ers are all the way down at 31. So that might be, as far as the talent pool is concerned, a second round pick. But there's a second school of thought that says, well, the 49ers have a damn crowded roster. And if the roster is so crowded, and I could get the roster open for you here right now, and we could look at this as I present you this theory. If the roster is so crowded and you've got to be able to fit as many draft picks as possible to be efficient, maybe you should consolidate picks and trade up so that you have a better chance, theoretically, of getting a player that's going to hit. And when it comes to offensive linemen, maybe the data shows that trading up in the first round isn't a bad idea since offensive linemen have the highest hit rate. So one school of thought is as many picks as possible, throw darts against the wall. The other school of thought is crowded roster. We don't have room to fit these guys on our 53 anyway. Consolidate the picks, move up in the draft. The more Moneyball-oriented organizations are going to think in terms of the percentages and throwing those darts up against the wall. Because I think the more Moneyball-oriented organizations realize that player evaluation is a lot of luck. And player evaluation is just give yourself an opportunity to have that luck. Give yourself an opportunity to take as many swings as possible. John Lynch suggested, and this is in the piece that I wrote about the draft yesterday that came out this morning. You could check it out in the description. John Lynch suggested again, and he suggested a couple times now, that the 49ers might lean further toward the accumulation of picks in this draft. Again, their track record has shown both, and I think that you need to take it on a case-by-case basis. The people that are way too married to Moneyball and way too married to the process of what the spreadsheets tell them, they're going to lose out on the human element of things, and they won't see a good player when he's right in front of their face. But the people that are way too convinced by their own scouting abilities, that think that they have God-given scouting talent and that they know every single guy is going to be a good player, those guys are going to be blindsided as well. Because you don't. A projection to the NFL is a really tricky thing. So taking this on a case-by-case basis, using data, using numbers, as the backdrop for that case-by-case study, but reading and reacting in the moment as if this is a football game where you have to pick the right play call against the right defense for the right down and distance. If that's how you treat the draft, you're probably going to be most successful that way. And that's how the 49ers have built one of the strongest, if not the strongest roster in football. They haven't gone unscathed. They've made bad play calls. They've thrown interceptions, if we want to use an analogy for the draft, but they've also made a lot of good plays in the draft, and they made a lot of good picks, especially in those middle rounds. And I do think that that's where the 49ers are going to be making their hay in this draft. Now, there is the OLine dilemma, and I go back to this. We go back to the hit rate at different parts of the draft from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. The 49ers obviously need help along the offensive line. That is where this roster performed the worst last year. They ranked across the 20s in several different offensive line pass protection metrics. So we know that they can use a boost at right tackle. We know that they could probably use the boost at right guard. Hell, even center. So you look at this data and you say, oh, well, they should use a first-round pick on an offensive lineman. The dilemma is that they don't pick until number 31. So who are you going to trade up for? How are you going to trade up for him? And do you weaken yourself in those middle rounds, which we know that the 49ers love, to go up and get somebody that, even though the numbers might be good, and by the way, you might have spied this. This is my plane on its way. I'm in Orange County right now. I got to get up to the Bay Area. This is my inbound plane. I digress really quickly. This is dramatic. Oh, boy, they're landing at 10:53. Thankfully, I'm really close to the airport. But as you can see here, these guys are making really good time. I started this live when they were up here, and now he's kind of over the Central Coast, over Ventura. So they're going to be landing here at John Wayne Airport in less than 20 minutes. So that means I'm going to have to get going. I'm going to have to pack this up here in a little bit. But anyway, I go back to our discussion of John Lynch and the draft. You have to make the best decision that the individual situation dictates. And when you talk about the potential of drafting an offensive lineman, if there's somebody that you really love, sure, the data says that it could be a good play. But the data also says that it's not 100% success rate for anyone. So my main message is to do not underestimate the crapshoot of the NFL draft. Now, I've gone a long way without mentioning Brandon Aiyuk. This was yesterday's 49ers update. The Brandon Aiyuk market overreaction. That was crazy. And I think that people probably haven't learned their lesson, unfortunately, because it happens every year. It happens every week. Sometimes it seems that it happens every day that I'm covering the 49ers. Something will happen, like the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract. People will have incomplete information. They'll rush off to get clicks and make judgments and freak out and get overly emotional. And then we'll find out the real details of the situation, which come in sometimes even days later, sometimes even months later. But yesterday they came in hours later. And we'll realize that it was about nothing. Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract was full of fluff. Brandon Aiyuk is a better receiver than Amon-Ra St. Brown, a more efficient receiver, deserves more money, will get more money. And Amon-Ra St. Brown's $35 million guaranteed, ranked only number 11 of all wide receivers. So it won't impact the Brandon Aiyuk market at all. Two things are true, and I'll review these because I said these yesterday, but when you're looking at Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers' ability to re-sign him and the whole decision today, if they're going to bite at one of these trade offers or not, always remember in terms of contracts that average per year is largely irrelevant. Those numbers can be fluffed up, and fully guaranteed money is what matters. Right now, the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk are very likely at a disagreement about how much fully guaranteed money he should be paid. Last year, Nick Bosa and the 49ers were likely at a disagreement about how much fully guaranteed money he should be paid. Nick Bosa ultimately, I think, quote unquote, won that negotiation, $88 million fully guaranteed. Pay attention to the fully guaranteed money of these wide receiver deals. Keep it all in mind as this situation with Aiyuk progresses. And also realize that this entire thing with Brandon Aiyuk entering this draft is a value calculation. The 49ers have one of the best receivers in football on their football team right now. They're only going to want to give him up if they can find immediate short-term value in terms of making their team better, which is going to be really hard because Aiyuk is really damn good and because the draft is such a crapshoot. I talk about the value calculation. Well, look who the worst position to draft in the first round is in terms of probability that they're going to be a hit. Wide receivers. It's really, really hard to find a good X wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk. 27% hit rate in the first round. 21 hits, 56 misses out of 77 total draftees. So the 49ers are going to keep this in mind. And I think they would have to be very, very blown away to consider moving on from Brandon Aiyuk, because the goal is to pay your own guys if they've elevated themselves through your system in the right way, which Brandon Aiyuk has done. They've paid everybody else that's done this before that was drafted by this regime. DeForest Buckner was not drafted by this regime. They paid George Kittle in 2020, Fred Warner in 2021, Deebo Samuel in 2022, Nick Bosa in 2023, and I think it's going to be Brandon Aiyuk in 2024. But you can never be 100% sure. That's what makes this day, that day right there, a day that they've made movies about with Mount Whitney High School alumni. A lot of greats have come through Mount Whitney. Not talking about myself, talking about Kevin Costner. So they made movies about this day because it's unpredictable. And you go back to the lesson of the movie. It was one of those where I think they embellish things for Hollywood. They talk so much, there's so much unpredictability in the movie. It's unrealistic to that degree, right? But everything is rooted in some truth. And the reason they're able to make a movie about the draft with so much wild roller coaster swings is because the draft inherently is a crapshoot that can give birth to some big roller coaster like swings. And that can happen today. That's why everybody's so excited. Treat it like a football game that's going to be starting in about, 6.5 hours. That means I got to get on this plane. Where are we at right now? Got to zoom in. They're cruising at 35,700 feet. It's coming in from Oakland. It's going to be heading over the coastline, looping around LA, and then landing here at John Wayne in not too long. Oh, just refreshed on me. So don't underestimate the speed of Southwest Airlines right now. They're coming in quick. I've been delayed so many times with those guys over the last few months. But I guess United's delayed me too. Those are my two main ones. And I think the SFO runway construction has been an issue. Good thing I'm flying into San Jose today instead of San Francisco. Do not underestimate the crapshoot, and definitely subscribe to The Athletic. This is what I wrote about the draft. I'm going to answer some questions here before I head to the airport. 49ers Q&A. Airport live stream coming up. Well, if something happens, I'll go live. I show up at the airport, like I go through security and I get on the plane. I don't like waiting at the airport. I think it's stupid. I've never missed a flight in my life. I'm knocking on wood, so it doesn't happen today. That would be bad. But I mean, yeah, sometimes I have a layover, so obviously I have to wait, and I'll do a live stream there. But I don't think that one will be necessary today unless something happens. Why don't we all listen to Eric Gomes and ask some good questions? Do I think the 49ers are feeling some pressure to get the Aiyuk extension done before the other big ones are done? Not necessarily. Everybody acts like these are all interconnected in some way. Players are going to be paid according to their value. Brandon Aiyuk's really good. It's going to be one of the most valuable ones. He's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. The numbers are better than Amon-Ra St. Brown's. His blocking ability is better. We always knew that his deal was going to be bigger than Amon-Ra St. Brown's. And it was ridiculous to think that that deal was going to live up to the initial reports yesterday of $30 million of real money, because it wasn't real money. It was $30 million per year built up of a lot of fluff. So people created this boogeyman in their head, like, oh, the Lions are moving quicker. That's going to screw over the 49ers with Brandon Aiyuk. And it's just not true. It's not how these things work. These guys are going to be paid commensurate to their value. You only reset the market if you're the very best receiver. Now, Brandon Aiyuk has an argument I don't know if he's going to reset the market, though. It's probably going to belong to Jefferson. I don't think you necessarily have to get the deal done before Jefferson. Jefferson's going to raise the ceiling in all likelihood. Aiyuk might come in a little bit underneath him. End of the day, the musical chairs here of the contracts will stop, and everybody will be in their rightful place, and we'll move on and play football in the 2024 season. If I take my wife with me, I don't travel alone. We got a companion pass on Southwest. I don't know how much longer I'm going to have that, though, because I'm flying at least United a whole lot more direct flights. You get to upgrade a little bit easier on United, but no, I don't always travel alone. I frequently travel alone, but not always. 49ers do have enough cap space to sign their draft class, yes, because especially they will after June 2nd. And it generally takes a few weeks to sign that draft class. So June 2nd is when $18 million frees up with Eric Armstead, and they'll have enough cap space to for sure do it at that point. We also don't know exactly how much the draft class is going to cost until we see which picks the 49ers make. We have the price right now for the 10 picks that they have, but they can and they have in the past moved around, which is going to change the price, maybe only slightly, because each pick is slotted for a different amount of money. Checking in on the plane. Where's it at? Look, United Airlines saw this and they're advertising to me down here. It's still inching forward. It's not quite here. They're starting to descend, though. They're at 32,200 feet. So it's going to be time for me to go very shortly. Looking for your questions. Percentage of the 49ers trade out of 31. You know what? Like 31's not here yet. This is what I'm trying to say is that you can't really evaluate what they might do until we actually get to pick 31 and we see who's on the board and we see who's calling the 49ers. I can't tell you what the play call is going to be hours before the game starts. And this is the play call at the very end of the first quarter, right? So let's all just chill and see what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan do based on the situation that is presented to them. Michael thinks that strength in the trenches is how the 49ers win the Super Bowl. That's a great thought, but it's not that easy to acquire strength in the trenches. I think every team wants it, but not every team is able to get it because A, you got to have the draft capital to do so. B, I mean, and defensive linemen are much cheaper in free agency because there's more of them than offensive linemen. So the 49ers have obviously stocked up there. They also had the highest paid offensive lineman in football for quite some time. He's not the highest paid anymore, but they have Trent Williams. He's still under that same contract that broke records when it was signed. So they've invested a lot in offensive line. They obviously need to invest more, but it's tricky. And that's why we're going to watch tonight. It's going to be a lot of interesting maneuvering that the 49ers have to do. If the 49ers have built a strong roster, strongest in the league, what is holding them back from winning the Super Bowl? Play calling, the line? Well, yeah, I mean, you could always point to mistakes, but you could also point to mistakes from Andy Reid and play calling. The Chiefs aren't perfect, so obviously Shanahan would like some back. Play calling also is something that is going to be a little bit reliant on luck and timing, a little bit of a crapshoot because you don't know exactly what the defense is going to bring out. I think the offensive line has been the most statistically lacking portion of the 49ers team and their 2 Super Bowl losses to the Chiefs. So, yes, I think that's held the 49ers back. You're always trying to get that portion of the team better. And there has been some bad luck for the 49ers. Absolutely. It's unfortunate, but there was a ball that bounced off of Darrell Luter's foot or leg or whatever when he wasn't looking on a punt. And it gave Patrick Mahomes a one-play opportunity for the touchdown that put the Chiefs back in the game. I mean, that kind of stuff happens. It really hasn't bounced in the 49ers' favor so far. I forgot what the stat was from the Super Bowl, but I think there was 6 fumbles and the Chiefs recovered 5 of them, or 7 and they recovered 6 of them. A lot of that is dumb luck. And the 49ers, I mean, the more times that you give yourself a chance at having good luck, the more times you're going to connect on a base hit. And that same applies to the Super Bowl, winning big games. You need to continually give yourself chances. It took Andy Reid 21 years to win a Super Bowl. Wasn't like he was a deficient coach. It just took time because he wasn't in that right situation. Just like you apply it to that, you can apply it to the NFL draft. And the NFL draft is a crapshoot. So today, the 49ers are going to probably try to give themselves as many swings as possible throughout the draft. They've got 10. Maybe they trade back, pick up a few more, but they've already been working the comp formula to get as many as possible. They've built this roster by having swings in the draft at volume. Volume is good because it's a crapshoot. So I think that I answered your question, but I also transferred it to the draft. Sometimes luck is a big part of these things, both tonight and when it comes to trying to win a Super Bowl. Anthony's thinking the 49ers need to draft 3 offensive linemen by round 5. No, that's not the way you can't think that way, because if you're just picking offensive linemen to pick offensive linemen, your picks are more likely to be failures because you're not picking talent, you're picking positions. You have to pick the people that you think are going to best fit your team, because that's going to maximize the percentage of hits. So yes, there are going to be times when you steer things more toward need. That's just the nature of building a team. But you cannot be rigid entering these things saying that, oh, we need 3 offensive linemen in the first 5 rounds. We're going to do that no matter what. That's how you get yourself in trouble in the draft. This is a talent acquisition business, and you have to keep an open mind to let that talent flow in. Another reason why you want as many picks as possible. All right, where's this plane at? I think I could go on this live until this sucker hits the Pacific Ocean. It's going to go out to Catalina, and then it's going to swim. No, it's not going to be me. It's going to fly. I can't fly. I could swim. It's going to swim parallel to the shore of Catalina, and then it's going to turn inland here toward Orange County. So let's keep on talking until this sucker gets out toward that island in the Pacific. I'm not going to LAX. As you can see, I'm flying out of SNA. I'm flying out of John Wayne. If you can avoid LAX, you should do so at absolutely all costs. Would Roger Rosengarten be an initial right tackle that could step in for Trent once he retires? I think the potential's there. One of the big myth truths about Roger Rosengarten, a lot of people are saying, oh, he's only a right tackle. He was actually a left tackle throughout high school, throughout his first couple of years at Washington. They only moved him to right tackle because they wanted him protecting Michael Penix Jr.'s blind side. Penix Jr. is a lefty. So they actually moved Roger Rosengarten to the right side because he was good at pass protection. Now, the one issue is he's got shorter arms. I get it, but he's the fastest lineman in this draft, and he didn't give up a single sack in the entire 2023 season, protecting the blind side. So there's a lot to like about Roger Rosengarten, including that positional versatility, left tackle and right tackle. How far am I from the airport? I would say maybe a 6-minute drive, very close to the John Wayne Airport. So my flight is in 1 hour and 12 minutes. I know a lot of you do not push it like I do, but I am in 1 hour and 12 minutes. I'm at 11:55 a.m. This plane coming in lands at 10:53. It's about to be over the ocean, as you can tell. Now, really cool thing right here is that you could like hover over these other planes and you could see where they're going. So this one is going to LAX and it's going to land at 10:47 a.m. Although I have a hard time believing this one's going to land at 10:47 because, oh boy, I better get going. Look, this thing just refreshed and our plane just jumped about 10 minutes on the screen. It's made it all the way around the little loop by Catalina, and it is coming in. Now, what I think is going to happen is it's going to fly. It's obviously over Huntington Beach right now, and it's going to make a big loop, and it's going to land at John Wayne. And my flight is in about an hour and 10 minutes. Maybe they want to start boarding early too. And if they want to, I don't think they're allowed to, but if they start boarding early, since it's Southwest, I don't have a reserved seat. I don't want to lose my privileges of being in that A group. I'd rather sit up by a window near the front of the plane. So it's a dilemma right now. Do I keep on talking about the 49ers or do I head to the airport? Yeah, it's only 10:45. We got an hour and 10 minutes. I do not believe in showing up to the airport early. I really don't. What's wrong with Southwest? They're the only ones that do a direct flight from Orange County to San Jose. 10 minutes from the stadium, I got to go to the 49ers facility right off my flight. I'm 6 minutes from the airport. Do you think I should drive an hour and a half to LAX just so I could take Delta to San Francisco where they're building a new runway and I'm going to be delayed? And it doesn't make any sense. Nothing wrong with Southwest. I mean, I prefer flying Delta or United, but if they don't do the direct flight, then they don't do the direct flight. I'm tracking. It's my inbound plane. This is the plane that's going to take me to the draft. So it's about to land. So I need to get to the airport soon. That's fine. I also prefer an airline where you can reserve a seat, but again, if I'm balanced, it's a balancing act, right? To get a reserved seat, I would have to drive over an hour to a different airport, which will have longer security lines, and it won't even, maybe I could fly to San Jose from that different airport, but still, I mean, it would be a complete addition of time and a lack of efficiency. So I'd rather just sit on a plane that's not even full where I could pick my seat. I could walk in. I don't have a reserved seat, but I could pick my seat. It's not that big of an inconvenience. Fotanu or Rosengarten, who's a better fit for the 49ers? Well, pick-wise, it might be Rosengarten if Fotanu goes earlier. I'm not going to take a driverless car to the airport because I'm not in San Francisco. But once I get to San Francisco, we'll do a driverless show. Those are fun. We've been talking about football for 40 minutes. I don't know where you've been. We're talking about the NFL draft. I've gotten you guys so prepared for the NFL draft. I've covered this from every single angle possible. So I think we could talk about the flight to the NFL draft. But we've talked about Kevin Costner going to Mount Whitney and Visalia. We've talked about the 49ers pick breakdowns. I mean, there's so much that we have discussed, including the percentages of first-round picks being hits. I think we could talk about the plane coming in for a few minutes. By the way, mock draft, if we go through them really briefly, I picked Jordan Morgan in our big NFL beat writer mock draft. Then we had the 7-round mock draft with Matt Barrows and me. I picked Darius Robinson, so you can see up on the screen. We had one more mock draft besides that. This is the one that I wrote. And my first pick in that one was him, Troy Fotanu. I illustrated what a trade up would look like for the 49ers. And I think if they trade up, they could pick somebody like this out of Washington. Not saying it's going to happen, but what I did say would be the dynamic is that the 49ers would keep their options as open as possible because that is how you approach a draft, any draft. You have to keep your options open. That is how you operate from a business standpoint. You cannot predetermine things the way that people like to on social media. All right, time for me to head to the plane. As we can see right here, it is close to landing. We'll see you we will see everybody in the Bay Area. I'm about to fly out to the NFL draft, at least to where the 49ers have their war room in Santa Clara. So see you on the other side, 49ers NFL draft. This has been your preview show. This has been Welcome to Draft Day. We will see you very, very soon.